All right, let's get started. Welcome to today's classified briefing. For those of you newly assigned to high-level security oversight, consider this your formal threat assessment on SCP-184. I need your absolute complete focus right now. We're dealing with an anomaly that doesn't just break the rules of physics, it completely shreds our standard operating procedures. Getting a solid grip on this thing's reality-bending nature is absolutely paramount to keeping the Foundation secure. Let's dive in. Here's the roadmap for this briefing. We're going to cover current containment parameters, its physical and anomalous profile, the architectural and reality degradation it causes, the Site-19 directive, and we'll wrap up with recovery and ongoing threats. Section 1. Current containment parameters. Now, right out of the gate, this anomaly hits us with a massive paradox. You know the Foundation, right? Our whole job is putting extremely dangerous things into very secure boxes. Well, SCP-184 demands the exact opposite. Look at this directive. SCP-184 is not to be contained in any structure. Just let that sink in for a second. That one rule completely subverts everything you've been taught since day one. Putting this object inside a cell is literally like pulling the pin on a spatial grenade. It absolutely cannot be brought indoors, ever. So, how exactly do we contain something that we can't lock in a room? The answer is extreme, almost paranoid measures. We keep SCP-184 anchored to a high-power electromagnet at all times. It's kept completely outdoors, cleverly disguised as a piece of ordinary statuary out in an open-air park. And yeah, we maintain continuous, unblinking monitoring of every single visitor who wanders through that area. But the real failsafe, the absolutely crucial part, is the magnet. If that electromagnet loses power, field agents are ordered to initiate an immediate, full lockdown. No unauthorized access until the juice is flowing again. A power failure isn't just a maintenance issue here, folks. It's a potential containment breach of apocalyptic proportions. Section 2. Physical and anomalous profile. You're probably wondering what actually warrants such a drastic open-air setup. Well, the object itself is deceivingly unassuming. It is a small, smooth, metallic dodecahedron, measuring just 10 centimeters across, basically the size of a grapefruit. Look at the specific geometry though. There's a circular hole in the center of each face and a tiny little sphere attached to every single vertex. It's made of this unknown, highly magnetic alloy that's about as hard as brass. And honestly, the stark contrast between this tiny little trinket and the absolute devastation it can cause, that's exactly why you must never, ever underestimate it. And here is where that devastation comes in. The core spatial anomaly. This is the impossible physics at play the second SCP-184 is brought inside an enclosed space. The exterior dimensions of the affected structure, they remain completely unchanged and physically normal. You look at the building from the outside and absolutely nothing is wrong. But the interior dimensions, they expand by hundreds of meters every single day. It creates this terrifying scenario where an infinite expanding inside is hiding within a static, totally normal outside. Imagine opening your standard hallway closet and staring down a cavernous hall that stretches for miles. That's exactly what we're dealing with. Let's walk through how this nightmare actually scales up. The escalation timeline is predictable, but it doesn't make it any less dreadful. Just one single hour after this thing enters a structure, the expansion process kicks off. At first, it's subtle, just pushing the walls out a bit. A few days later, the original dimensions of the room have tripled, though, weirdly enough, the ceiling height always stays exactly the same. But the subsequent phase is where things get heavily anomalous. SCP-184 begins generating wholly new rooms. It somehow copies items from inside the original structure, creating perfectly matched, fully furnished spaces. And then, eventually, we hit the terminal phase. This is where the spatial expansion process just catastrophically breaks down. Section 3. Architectural and reality degradation. This phase right here is the pure horror of what happens when this anomaly operates unchecked. We define terminal degradation as the point where SCP-184 stops making perfect copies of normal architecture and starts generating surreal, flawed, just straight-up nightmarish physical structures. It's the point where the environment actively turns hostile to human logic. It's almost like the anomaly runs out of hard drive space, you know? Or it just completely loses its understanding of what a human dwelling is actually supposed to look like. And the degradations we've actually observed vividly paint that picture. Our rescue teams have documented books constructed entirely out of glass, microwaves carved from solid wood. They've opened doors that lead absolutely nowhere, just opening directly into blank, solid brick walls. But the absolute worst part? The hallways. We're talking tiny, impossibly long corridors that twist and turn back around into vast, inescapable mazes. Navigating these spaces turns into a lethal psychological and physical trap. You aren't just lost in a big building, you are trapped in an environment that has fundamentally forgotten the laws of nature. And here's the absolute most crucial point you need to take away from this briefing. The changes do not go away with the removal of SCP-184. If you somehow manage to navigate the maze and extract the object, yeah, you stop the continuous growth. But those horrific architectural scars, those impossible mazes and twisted geometries, they stay. They are left behind forever. The reality damage is entirely permanent. Section 4. The Site-19 Directive. Knowing the sanity-breaking damage this little dodecahedron causes, we obviously had to establish some utterly uncompromising internal mandates. Read this quote from Dr. Maroc very, very carefully. I don't think I need to stress the fact that this thing can never be allowed into Site-19. Bringing this object into a Foundation site is not just an operational risk, folks. It is a full-blown doomsday scenario. A single hour of accidental exposure inside Site-19 could turn our most vital facility into an infinite, inescapable labyrinth. Because of that immense threat level, the protocols for handling contaminated structures are utterly unforgiving. If a building is compromised, total demolition is required following a high-level review, and that's assuming demolition is even physically possible. Absolutely no investigation is permitted into these structures without explicit prior approval from the top, and if, for whatever reason, entry is authorized, fully equipped rescue teams have to be on standby at all times. We do not send our personnel into these twisted spaces lightly. The risk of getting permanently lost in one of these architectural breakdowns is pretty much a guarantee without massive precautions. Section 5. Recovery and ongoing threats. To give you a real-world example of SCP-184's destructive capabilities out in the field, let's talk about the Kowloon walled city incident back in June of... Now that city was already one of the most densely populated places on the planet. The discovery phase kicked off with reports of explosive, completely bizarre architectural growth within that impossibly crowded space. As things escalated, ignorant local law enforcement rushed in and conducted these incredibly reckless crackdowns, actually destroying several affected sections before our operatives could even secure the area. Ultimately, Mobile Task Force Zeta-9, the Mole Rats, were sent in and managed to recover the object with minimal losses. But honestly, the true extent of the anomaly's effect on Kowloon might never be fully understood, simply because of that chaotic police interference. Now, I want you to consider this number: 50. During our investigations into the Kowloon incident, we found documents indicating that residents were actually using the anomaly on purpose. They were allegedly charging £50 per half hour to bring SCP-184 into a flat just to expand their living space. It's a terrifying reminder of the human element in all of this. Regular civilians casually risking the fabric of reality itself just for a little extra legroom, ultimately triggering the exact architectural nightmare we were just discussing. And that human element directly feeds into our ongoing threat profile. Because of incidents like Kowloon, we have a list of hypothesized locations of interest that may have been created by SCP-184, or maybe something similar. Right now, we are heavily investigating Backdoor Soho and the Chugoko Cellar. The truly chilling reality we have to face is that the after effects of SCP-184 might already be deeply, permanently rooted in the world around us, hiding in plain sight. So, as we wrap up today's briefing, I want to leave you with one absolutely critical question to chew on. How many endless, impossibly vast spaces remain completely undiscovered, just sitting there behind a perfectly normal-looking door? The next time you're walking down a hallway that seems just a little bit too long, or you go to open a door that you swear shouldn't be there, just remember SCP-184. Stay sharp out there, keep your eyes open. Briefing adjourned. This concludes today's briefing. If you wish to maintain your current clearance level and ensure continued access to the Versarian database, a subscription to this channel is mandatory. Secure your connection by leaving a like on this file, and log your requests in the comments section below to dictate which anomaly we unseal next. Stay vigilant and expect your next set of logs every day. Secure, contain, protect.